Marcus woke up at 3 a.m., drenched in cold sweat. The numbers on his phone screen glowed menacingly. Negative $847,000. His savings account, the one he had spent 15 years building, was gone. Not stolen, not hacked. He had drained it himself. And in 6 months, he would either be a millionaire or completely destroyed. His hands trembled as he stared at the warehouse lease agreement he had signed just hours ago. There was no turning back now. The clock was ticking, and every second he hesitated, someone else was getting richer while he stood still. Let me take you back 8 months earlier to understand how Marcus ended up here, and why this moment would teach him the most valuable lesson about money that schools never teach and parents never explain. Marcus Chen was the model of financial responsibility. At 32 years old, he had $847,000 in his savings account. While his friends bought fancy cars and took expensive vacations, Marcus drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic and brought lunch from home every single day. He read every personal finance book. He followed the 50-30-20 rule religiously. He had an emergency fund that could cover 2 years of expenses. Financial advisors loved him. His parents were proud. He was doing everything right, exactly by the book. But Marcus had a problem he didn't even know existed. He was broke. Not financially broke, but mentally broke. Opportunity broke. And he was about to learn this lesson in the most terrifying way possible. It started on a Tuesday afternoon. Marcus was having coffee with his college roommate, James. They hadn't seen each other in 3 years. James pulled up in a Tesla Model S, wearing a custom-tailored suit that probably cost more than Marcus spent on clothes in 5 years. Marcus felt that familiar tinge of judgment. Here we go, he thought. Another friend drowning in debt trying to look successful. Over coffee, James talked about his business. He had started a logistics company that connected manufacturers directly with retailers, cutting out middlemen. The business was doing $4 million in annual revenue. Marcus was shocked. James had always been the careless one with money in college, the guy who ordered takeout 3 times a day and bought rounds of drinks he couldn't afford. "How did you even start?" Marcus asked. "Did your parents give you money?" James laughed. "Man, my parents had nothing. I started with $12,000. I took a $10,000 personal loan and had $2,000 in my account. I was terrified every single day for the first year." Marcus couldn't comprehend it. "But what about your emergency fund? What about security?" "Marcus, let me ask you something. How much do you have saved up?" Marcus hesitated. He didn't like talking about money, but this was James. "About $850,000? James nearly spit out his coffee. "Wait, what? You have almost $1 million just sitting in a savings account?" "It's called being responsible," Marcus said defensively. James leaned forward. "Marcus, do you know what that money is doing right now? It's dying. Every single day, inflation is eating it alive. You're losing about $35,000 a year in purchasing power just by letting it sit there. That's not being responsible. That's being afraid." The words hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. Afraid? He wasn't afraid. He was smart. He was disciplined. He was everything society said he should be. But that night, lying in bed, James's words echoed in his head. Was he really afraid? Marcus started researching. He looked up his college graduating class. He found out that Sarah Chen had started a digital marketing agency and sold it for $3 million. David Rodriguez owned 6 rental properties, generating $18,000 a month in passive income. Michelle Kim had invested in 3 startups, one of which had gone public, making her worth over $2 million. All of them had started with less money than Marcus had now. All of them had taken risks, All of them had done what Marcus was too afraid to do. Then Marcus discovered something that changed everything. He found an interview with Ray Dalio, one of the most successful investors in history, who said, "The biggest mistake people make is not knowing how to handle not knowing." Marcus realized that's exactly what he had been doing. He had been so focused on protecting what he had that he never learned how to multiply it. He started attending business meetups and real estate investment seminars. At one event, he met an entrepreneur named Victoria who had built a chain of automated car washes. She explained her philosophy. Saving money is like storing potential energy. It's useless until you convert it into kinetic energy. Rich people understand that money sitting still is money wasted. They're not afraid of losing money. They're afraid of missing opportunities. Marcus found his opportunity 3 weeks later. A manufacturing company was going bankrupt and selling their 50,000 square foot warehouse and all their equipment for $1.2 million. The location was perfect, right between 3 major highways. Marcus saw the potential immediately. He could lease it to logistics companies, e-commerce businesses, or even convert part of it into climate-controlled storage units. The potential revenue was $45,000 per month. But there was a problem. He needed to act fast. 3 other buyers were interested. This is when Marcus's internal war began. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to walk away. This was dangerous. This was risky. What if it failed? What if he lost everything? What about his emergency fund? What about security? But another voice, a newer voice, whispered something different. What if it works? What if this is the moment that changes everything? What if playing it safe is the riskiest thing you can do? Marcus spent 4 days running numbers obsessively. He barely slept. He consulted with 3 different commercial real estate experts. He analyzed market trends. He projected cash flows. The math worked. The opportunity was real. But math didn't make the fear go away. On day 5, Marcus did something that terrified him more than anything he'd ever done. He withdrew $300,000 for the down payment. He secured a commercial loan for the remaining $900,000. He signed documents that made him personally liable for over $1 million in debt. The moment he signed, he felt like he was going to throw up. The first month was absolute hell. Marcus couldn't sleep. Every sound at night made him think something was wrong with the property. Every email notification made his heart race. He had gone from having almost zero stress to having crushing anxiety. His savings account, his security blanket for 15 years, was now down to $547,000 and dropping as it put more money into renovations and marketing. Then something unexpected happened. Within 6 weeks, he had leased 60% of the warehouse space to a growing e-commerce company for $24,000 per month. 2 weeks later, he leased another 25% to a logistics startup for $12,000 per month. He converted the remaining 15% into climate-controlled storage units that generated an additional $6,000 monthly. In less than 3 months, Marcus was generating $42,000 per month in revenue. After expenses and loan payments, he was netting $18,000 per month in profit. But the real shock came when a commercial real estate investor approached him with an offer. The property had appreciated significantly because Marcus had improved it and secured reliable tenants. The investor offered him $2.1 million for the property. Marcus had turned his $300,000 investment into $900,000 in profit in just 6 months. Plus, he had collected over $100,000 in rental income. If he accepted the offer, he would walk away with over $1 million in gains. Marcus sat in his apartment, staring at the offer letter. A year ago, he would have never believed this was possible. He had spent 15 years slowly, carefully, safely building $850,000. In 6 months of strategic risk-taking, he had made more money than he had in the previous 15 years combined. But here's what Marcus learned that was even more valuable than the money. Rich people don't save money because they understand a fundamental truth that poor and middle-class people miss. Money is not meant to be stored. Money is meant to be deployed. Money is a tool, not a trophy. Every dollar sitting in a savings account is a soldier sitting on the bench instead of fighting in the battlefield. Marcus learned that wealthy people think about money in 3 categories: operating capital, which covers their living expenses; opportunity capital, which they deploy into investments; and security capital, which is their true emergency fund. The mistake Marcus had made was treating all his money as security capital. He had almost $1 million sitting idle when he only needed about $50,000 for a real emergency fund. The truly wealthy understand that holding cash is actually risky, because inflation and missed opportunities erode its value faster than any interest rate can protect it. They're not reckless, they're calculated. They study, they analyze, but then they act. They understand that the greatest risk is not the risk of losing money, but the risk of never multiplying it. Marcus didn't sell the property. Instead, he refinanced it, pulled out $400,000 in equity, and used that money to buy 2 more commercial properties. Within 18 months, his monthly passive income was $67,000. Within 3 years, his net worth exceeded $8 million. The money he had been so afraid to risk had become the foundation of generational wealth. But perhaps the most important lesson Marcus learned was this: savings give you the illusion of security, but investments give you actual freedom. His $850,000 in savings made him feel safe, but it kept him trapped in a job he didn't love, living a life that was comfortable but not extraordinary. His investments made him nervous at first, but they ultimately gave him the freedom to choose how he spent his time, the ability to say no to things that didn't serve him, and the resources to say yes to opportunities that excited him. Marcus now teaches a course on wealth building, and he always starts with the same question: are you saving money, or are you trapping it? He explains that money is like water. If you let it sit in one place too long, it becomes stagnant and useless. But if you let it flow, if you direct it strategically, it can create energy, generate power, and produce abundance. The final thing Marcus tells his students is this: the reason rich people don't save money is not because they're careless or irresponsible. It's because they understand that true financial security doesn't come from having money in the bank. It comes from having the skills, knowledge, and courage to create money whenever you need it. That's a security no savings account can ever provide. Marcus still remembers that night he woke up at 3 a.m., terrified about what he had done. Now he realizes that terror was the feeling of transformation. That was the moment he stopped being someone who had money and became someone who understood money. And that understanding, more than any dollar amount, was the real wealth he had gained.